More Perfect Union shared this yesterday, and I think it is a excellent encapsulation of what we were talking about the other day with child labor in the U.S. These were amendments that were proposed to, if we're going to do child labor in Florida, we should probably have some buffer zones, Every single one of these was tossed out, allowing parents of child laborers to enter unannounced to inspect the employer. So if you are a parent of a 14-year-old who is, bussing tables at a restaurant, you can't just come in and see, how's the treatment of my child, of my little kid who's doing child labor, requiring employers to provide training materials to the parents. So if your kid is working in a factory, in an auto shop, the parents just can't know what the training is like. Requiring employers to maintain sexual harassment records. So if your minor is working in Florida and there are sexual harassment instances, there's no requirement to give those records to the parents. Now, can that kid request those records? Sure, but they're children. They don't know how to assert themselves in a workplace. They don't know how to exercise their labor rights. They don't know shit. They're children. And this is exactly what I was talking about the other day whenever we were going over why having kids in a workplace is bad. Aside from you're doing child labor, they're kids. They should be hanging out with their friends, playing Fortnite, doing TikTok dances, doing sports events, doing after-school curricular activities. I mean, this goes for any job. I've worked in every aspect of customer service. You know that there are two fronts, actually three, in which you have to worry about sexual harassment. One, your management. Management being, at a different power dynamic, uses their power to do sexual harassment. Two, your coworkers, right? Solidarity with our working class comrades, but there is still, even in the most democratic and egalitarian organization of any workplace, there is still going to be a problem with sexual harassment, and that is always going to be something that has to be curtailed and addressed. And three, the customers. And I would even say, if you're working in food service, the most aggressive one that you have to tackle. Customers constantly do sexual harassment, especially towards young girls who are working in food service. Employers don't have to maintain sexual harassment records and give copies to the parents. That is insane. It is the most libertarian shit. Florida is such a libertarian ANCAP dystopia. It's just child labor and radioactive asphalt. Let this fly and we will have Hooters teens. I was just thinking about that, about how okay, so what if a kid applies to a bikini cafe, those ice cream coffee shops where they're the workers are in bikinis.
Well, she called me a communist.
So you're telling me in
home.
Florida that a teenager can apply to one of these restaurants? We're literally doing actually it's a phebophilia. Not allowed on Twitch, but allowed in Florida. My 17-year-old said some middle-aged man hit on her at the restaurant she works at, and she said loudly that she was a minor, and he responded, "While you're working here," she said, "it doesn't matter, I'm still a minor." That's so gross. I'm sorry about that, Melanin. It goes on. It goes on. Requiring employers to notify parents if their child witnesses an act of violence at work. So if some drunk asshole comes into the restaurant or into whatever business it is and starts fighting people, or there's a robbery, the employers have no obligation to contact the parents and be like,
"Hey, there was an incident at work."
Or if it's done to the kid, there's no requirement to be like,
"Hey, there's an assault at work. Your kid's okay, but they're shaken up."
There's just no requirement. It's just completely hands-off, allowing legally employed 16 and 17-year-olds to get an abortion without parental consent, as the bill says they don't need parental consent to work. So this right here, this is a dog ear, right? When we talk about pork, poison pill provisions, and dog ears, this is what one of them is. This is the debate lord, the by your logic form of legislation, right? If there is no requirement for the parents to consent to certain requirements in the workplace for their kids. Why would the parents need to give consent for that kid to get medical care in the form of reproductive health care? And they were like, nope. By your logic, by my nuts, get the fuck out of here. What happened to no taxation without representation, head asses? Yeah, that doesn't apply. That's only literally, the no taxation without representation is literally just, I don't like taxes. Motherfuckers don't understand what that shit means. When are adult idiots going to realize all easing of work rules are used to drive down labor costs? This is why people live paycheck to paycheck. Bingo! Exactly, chipping up poker. You are 100% on point. This is, and we talked about this whenever Iowa was lowering their working age requirements. This is simply to not pay grown adults a livable wage. Now, Florida has a $15 minimum wage, not by the choice of the Florida state legislature, but by a mandate of the people. There was an amendment vote on the ballot in 2020, I can't remember what year it was. The people of Florida voted for a $15 minimum wage. It would have stayed at like $7.25 had the people of Florida not had that choice, right? Fucking Massachusetts has the same minimum wage. How? Well, I mean, Massachusetts have $15 or they have $7.25. What are you saying? Also, whose kids are going to work 8-hour shifts at McDonald's? Poor kids. Exactly. Like, rich kids or the children of rich people are not going to be working these jobs. It's going to be poor people. It's going to be predominantly black and brown. It's going to be predominantly immigrant. It's going to be predominantly poor white kids that are working in these jobs. That's what it's going to be. Creating a Department of Labor to protect all workers, including kids, against wage theft and other labor violations. They axed that. Like, just a Department of Labor to make sure that kids are protected from wage theft. And they're like,
No.
Preventing minors from obtaining work learning credits unless the work site is OSHA certified and has a proven history of safety. Yeah, they're like, oh, fucking OSHA, get that out of here. How? How have we arrived at the point where we're bringing child labor back? Child labor is back in a big way. It is predominantly the most reliable voting bloc of any party is going to be the elderly. And in Florida, the most powerful district is where the villages are. That in Key West. Now, there's more. Florida Republicans are having a hearing about rolling back child labor laws. When asked about the danger to kids and rising labor violations, the bill author, Representative Linda Cheney, says,
for the past several years, there's been hundreds of child labor violations here, including a 195.8 increase between 2000 and 2022. Adding this bill here, do you think that would increase that and the child would be taken advantage of? Statistics suggest they would.
Representative Cheney.
Thank you, Chair Soroy. Thank you, Rep. Casello, for that question. First of all, this bill is not about children. This bill is about 16 and 17-year-olds.
They're literally doing the it's a phebophilia. Literally. They're doing the it's a phebophilia law.
These are youth workers that are driving automobiles. These are not children. There are hazardous workforce protections in place in Florida that are more stringent than the federal protections. And the study that you reference is 281 individual.
That's horseshit. That's horseshit. It's Florida. Y'all are trying to use radioactive asphalt. That's horseshit. It's Florida, dog.
Cases, which any just one case is too many, but 281 out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of workers is maybe not as much as the percentage that you presented. And I would say that if there are violations that are happening, there are laws in place. Those violations should be reported. Those employers should be held accountable. I
mean, with a strong social safety net, I would not oppose 16-year-olds doing some light work, maybe 4 hours a day max, to pay for their first car or something. That's good. Well, 4 hours a day max would not be able to pay for a car, first and foremost. Now, I say all of this as someone who started working at 14 years old. My very first job, I was a dishwasher at a Piccadilly. Now, if you don't know what Piccadilly is, and you're not American, it's like imagine a hospital cafeteria, but, make it cozy. I was washing dishes, and I would work 4 hours a night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would work a total of 12 hours a week, right? Just enough to have a little bit of cash and pay half of my car insurance because my parents bought me a car. The reason I bring up I started working at 14 is because I should not have had to work at 14. There were times when I had to help my parents pay for bills. There were times when I had to give my parents money to help with groceries, We're talking about, this is 2008. I went into the workforce during the recession. It was rough times. We were not unstable. We were not at risk of losing our house or anything, but we were not living large. The parents got in on a house while the neighborhood was being developed. They paid like $125,000 for what is now a $400,000 home. Insane price increases on home values in the area now. There's no reason that children should have to work because the baseline material conditions are not being addressed in any meaningful way, or even in any milquetoast handout kind of way where we're kind of addressing it but not really. We're not even doing that. We were promised a minimum wage increase in this country by Brandon whenever he ran for office. We didn't get that. We were promised the HUD was going to do housing protections and rent controls. We didn't do that. There's no addressing of student lunch debt or just doing free lunch across the country. There's nothing like that going on. So kids are forced into the labor market at an early age. And as someone accurately pointed out, it's particularly poor kids. It's always going to be the poor kids that are working a job. This is the time of your life when you are supposed to be learning, you're supposed to be in school, you're supposed to be developing your worldview and making friends and enjoying your life. And instead, we are thrusting people into early adulthood because there's no safety. There's no safety for these kids. It's not like it's going to be an easy job. They're going to be working with adults, especially if they're working in the food sector, because let's be real, that's where predominantly these jobs are going to be. It's going to be in customer service. It's going to be fast food. It's going to be waiting tables and shit. And I don't want a little kid waiting my table. There's that video I saw a while back, if somebody wants to pull it up, of this 12-year-old working the drive-through line at a Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, that's... the person recording the video was like, oh, that's adorable. Look at you. You're just working hard. And me, I got pissed off watching that. I'm like, what the fuck is this little baby doing? Get away from my nuggies. Get your little Kool-Aid stained finger tips away from my food. I don't want you touching that shit. What did you say, Mactara? 4 hours a day is actually a lot. Kids should not have to even work that much in a civilized country. 4 hours a day is mostly going to mean no after-school activities, no sports, nothing. 8 hours of school plus 4 hours of work plus 1 to 4 hours of homework every day is insane. Kids are not slaves. Right. Now, should we implement work programs within schools? Absolutely. I think in a just society, a just organization of our education system, kids should be able to help out in the lunchroom, with making lunch for the kids, working within the school garden program, cleaning up the school. I think we should do that. We should implement a system in place where the students at any public school, and also, you guys know my position on public schools, there should only be public schools, right? That kids should be working within the school as well. That should be where students' work is. If they're going to work at all, it should be within the school, helping out teachers, getting lesson plans together, helping reorganize student libraries and stuff. That should be where they're at, because it is a controlled environment. Seems like working in a school would foster a sense of community. Yeah, and that is the opposite of what this does. Right now, Florida Republicans are holding a hearing about rolling back child labor laws. And an 18-year-old who started working at 15 is urging them to protect kids.
I'm 18 years old. I started working at 15, so I understand the struggle that he's describing. But it's very important to have these laws in place. We do not want minors who go into high school working 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. How are they going to function at school? I know people who did that, working under the table, and they did not succeed in high school.
Yeah, this is a big part of it. This is a massive part of it, because when I was working, right, when someone says, oh, you work 4 hours, you're going to be working 5 to 6, right? Because you're going to be closing. You're going to be getting those little extra hours in. And whether or not you get overtime is a whole other question. Also, you don't want kids going to school for 8 hours a day, then doing 4 or more hours of work. And this is not for 4 hours, by the way. This is like working like full 8-hour shifts. And then driving home. I don't want them on the road. I barely trust teenagers on the road anyway, okay? I'm very boomer-pilled when it comes to, like, kids driving. When you're in food service, you're not guaranteed, like, a free meal from the company. You gotta pay for that. You're not even guaranteed a lunch break at your jobs. Like, I've had to explain to my sister in the past, like, no, your job is required to give you at least 15 minutes. You have to take a lunch break after a certain amount of hours, right? I've had to literally explain to people their labor rights. It's wild.
Not succeed in high school if you are going straight from work to school. As well, with my personal experience, it is necessary for minors to be able to have a 30-minute lunch break. You have to be able to recover, especially whenever you are new to work and you don't really understand the laws. And one last thing I want to point out is, I did not know as a minor how to report workplace violations.
Yep.
Minors don't know how to do that. They don't know the law. You say get informed, they're not going to get informed. They have more important things. They got school, work, make time for friends. They're not going to care about reading some legal document to understand how the law works. So, yes, we have these laws, but they don't matter if they can't be enforced.
Yeah, they're on point. They're 100% on point.